Today, we're diving into one of the most important periods in a person's entire life, their very first foods. What a baby eats between 6 and 23 months. Well, it does a lot more than just fill their stomach. It literally builds their future.
So let's just start with that big question right there. I know, it sounds a little dramatic, right? But as we're about to see, the science shows it isn't really that far from the truth. This incredibly short window of time really does set the stage for everything: lifelong health, how we learn, and even our earning potential down the road.
It all happens in what experts call the first 1,000 days, which is the time from conception all the way to a child's second birthday. But we're going to zoom in on a super critical window within that time, those 18 months from 6 to 23 months old. This is when a child's diet changes fundamentally.
Now, the official term for this is complementary feeding. Basically, it's that huge transition, right around 6 months, from a diet of only breast milk to one that starts to include all sorts of other foods and liquids. This is where it all begins. This is where dietary habits are formed for life.
And this is so important. This is about so much more than just keeping a baby from being hungry. Think of it like you're building a house. The nutrients a child gets during this period, that's the bricks, it's the mortar, it's the wiring for everything that's to come. We're talking their brain's architecture, their physical growth, their immune defenses, the whole shebang. If you get this foundation right, that house is going to be strong for life.
So how are we actually doing with this on a global scale? Well, unfortunately, the data shows there's a massive gap between what children need and what they're actually getting. It's like a quiet crisis happening in high chairs all over the world.
Globally, fewer than 1 in 3 children, just 28%, get what's called minimum dietary diversity. Let that sink in. That means more than 2/3 of kids are missing out on the range of foods they absolutely need to thrive.
And what's missing? Well, often it's the most nutrient-packed foods. An incredible 54%, that's more than half of all children this age, did not eat a single egg or a piece of fish or any meat the day before they were surveyed.
It's also not just what they eat, but how often they eat. Nearly half of all toddlers are not being fed the minimum number of meals recommended each day. That creates a huge energy and nutrient deficit right when their little bodies and brains are growing faster than at any other time in their lives.
And, these nutritional gaps aren't spread evenly across the globe, not at all. In Latin America and the Caribbean, 62% of children are doing pretty well, achieving that minimum dietary diversity. But then you look at South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa, and that number just plummets to around 25%. A child's chance at a healthy start is profoundly and unfairly shaped by where they happen to be born.
The consequences of this nutrition gap go way, way beyond just hunger. It sets off this domino effect that can last an entire lifetime, impacting a child's body, their brain, and their whole future.
A really stark example of this is something called stunting, which basically means impaired growth and development. The risk starts kicking in at 6 months, and then it just tragically climbs and climbs, peaking right between 18 and 23 months. In some of the hardest-hit regions, a shocking 60% of children are affected by this age.
The impact on the brain is just as devastating. Poor nutrition in this window can lead to delayed motor skills, impaired brain development, lower IQs, and then, later on, poor performance in school. And you can draw a straight line from that to reduced earning potential when that child becomes an adult. It all connects.
And here is the most sobering fact of all. The damage that's done during this period, especially to the brain, is for the most part irreversible. This isn't a problem a child simply grows out of. The foundation, if it's poorly built, is incredibly difficult to go back and fix.
And ultimately, the stakes just could not be higher. This is connected to nearly half of all child deaths worldwide. That's 2.7 million children a year, a staggering loss of human potential that's rooted in the very first foods a child does or doesn't receive.
Okay, but this is not an unsolvable problem. In fact, we have a really clear blueprint for what works. The World Health Organization gives us a path forward that is clear, it's actionable, and it can be adapted pretty much anywhere.
It really boils down to 4 key steps. First, start introducing a variety of different foods at 6 months. Second, prioritize what you could call powerhouse foods, things like eggs, meats, fruits, and veggies. Third, feed responsively. And that just means be patient, don't force it. And fourth, and this is a big one, avoid the junk, foods high in sugar, salt, and unhealthy fat.
So what does dietary diversity actually look like? It sounds kind of complicated, but it's really not. The goal is for a child to eat foods from at least 5 of these 8 groups every single day. We're not talking about expensive superfoods here.
It's about a balanced mix of things that are accessible, from grains and beans to eggs and vitamin A-rich vegetables like carrots.
So, if we know what to do, how do we make it happen on a global scale? Well, this means we need to shift our thinking from just individual actions to making smart, systemic investments in our collective future.
And the cool thing is, for every barrier, there's a proven solution. If there's a lack of knowledge, community health workers can provide counseling. If there are nutrient gaps, we can use fortified foods. If healthy food is too expensive, social programs can help. It's all about matching the right intervention to the specific problem on the ground.
And let's be clear, this isn't just about charity. It's one of the smartest economic decisions a country can possibly make. Experts consistently call investing in early childhood nutrition one of the best buys in global development because, simply put, a healthy, well-nourished population is a productive one.
And here's the payoff. For every single dollar invested in improving nutrition during this critical window, the potential return to the economy is as high as $16. That is just an incredible return on investment, which comes from things like lower healthcare costs and higher adult productivity down the line.
Which leaves us with this final question. The science is crystal clear, the solutions exist, and the economic case is undeniable. So how do we mobilize the will to build a world where every single child, no matter where they are born, gets the foundational start in life that they truly deserve?